Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's video, a little different. I'm going to start doing some beer reviews and giving you guys some pointers on how to drink beer, if you like beer, if you don't like beer, what to look for in beer, where to stay away from if you're really not into beer, and just some general overview. But today's video, I'm going to be reviewing Samuel Adams Cherry Wheat. This beer is in my top 3 favorite beers of all time. It has a legacy that has been going on since I started drinking beer. It is absolutely perfect. So today's video, we're going to go through, review it. I'm going to kind of go through and give you a little history on Sam Adams. Okay, if you guys don't know, Sam Adams is owned, well, it's the Boston Beer Company, and the owner is Jim Koch. He founded the company in 1984. He actually was homebrewing. He found his grandfather's recipe in his dad's attic, and he's third generation homebrewer. Well, brewer. Started off as his great grandpa's recipe over in Germany, and they were brewmasters through the years, passed down through the generations. His dad finally, back in the, I don't know, 50s, 60s, somewhere in that ballpark, the brewing industry was kind of going on the downward, and you had just basically plain Jane American beers. No one wanted any flavorful beers. So the brewery dream kind of died. His father moved along. Jim Koch himself became an accountant and went to Harvard and a whole bunch of business degrees and whatnot. Well, turned out that he was sick and tired of corporate world shit and decided to quit. Found his great-grandfather's recipe in his attic, decided to homebrew it, perfect it, make it perfect, and just launched the Boston Beer Company. And that beer that he made was Boston Lager. Really good book that goes through and explains is Quench Your Own Thirst by Jim Koch. Came out in 2016. I've read it probably 1,700 times. Great book. Great history lesson on his family, on the beer industry, how it impacts the United States and across the company. And really one awesome fact that I took away from this is the craft beer industry only accounts for 1% of the total market globally. That's just insane, just thinking of how much craft beer has exploded. It's probably gone up a little bit in the last 5 years since this book was written, but definitely well worth the read. So check it out. I'll leave a link in the description to see if you can find it. I bought it off Amazon when it first came out, and go from there. Second book I would highly recommend getting into beer for tasting notes and whatnot is this. It's the Illustration Dictionary of Beer. Look what's right there. I wonder why. Definitely great book. Has tons of breweries. It's a little bit older. It goes from the beginning of how beer was invented and through the history, and gives different breweries across the country and across the world, and just gives different tasting notes on different kinds of beers. It's alphabetically ordered, and it's definitely a great book. So if you can find this one, pick it up. Definitely a good read. Good tool to have in your arsenal. Last book I'll recommend, and then we'll get into this guy sitting here, is a tasting beer book. A little bit thinner. It's the Portable Beer Expert, and it's uncapping the secrets in every bottle of beer. Knowing how to drink beer teaches you how to do it, what to look for, and break glass, proper terminology. Tons and tons of information in here. Food pairing, what beers are good. Hey, there's a gift card. And just on and on. You'll just won't be disappointed with Tasting Beer book. And with that, let's get into the beer. Okay, some of you might not know, I have been homebrewing for going on probably 6-7 years now. I make a lot of different kinds of beers. I've made stouts, I've made ales, I made wheat beers. I've experimented with Cadbury mini eggs and trying to make a chocolate stout that turned out horribly. I've done quite a few different things homebrewing. That's where the experimental process usually starts, and you can get really super creative on it. I've also helped work at a brewery, bartending and brewing beer. So I have some background of beer, just a little bit, proper pourage, temperature, glass. One thing I could tell you that pisses me off more than anything is improper glass usage. Beer glasses, they're not supposed to be chilled. They're not supposed to come out of a freezer. They're not supposed to come out of a refrigerator. Keep them at room temperature. Beer glasses. Second thing, if you don't know what proper glass to use, like this is a kind of a tulip style glass, just use a normal pint glass for tasting your beer. Don't try to get all complicated with your beer and just, it's beer. Bottom line, it's beer. Glasses do make a difference in certain applications, not all applications, but hey, you can learn that as you go along. Pick up some of those books and you'll figure that out. This tulip glass, I got a set of 4 of them from Goodwill. They were 25 cents a piece. It's nothing special, but it does have a nice bowl shape at the top of it, and it's got a little decent stem. And it's got a little stamping in the bottom of it. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but that little stamping on the bottom actually helps the CO2 kind of participate, do some kind of magic, and actually lets the CO2 gradually go through the beer, so you're getting the aromas in your nose as you're sitting there smelling it. I like these glasses because, as we're talking about Sam Adams, Jim Koch has invented a awesome glass. That glass is right here. Same kind of style, has the nice bowl shape to it, and then the lip on it. Of course, my glass that I like just doesn't have the lip, but all this helps with taste and aroma, and of course it's got the little etching at the bottom of it that helps release the CO2 just like it does out of this glass here. Cool technology. Really getting back to Jim Koch and why I'm really thrilled with the beers is perfection is always number one for him. Up until a few years ago, you never saw Sam Adams canned. You always saw it bottled, and that was because when it comes out of a can, it doesn't have the right texture. You notice if you ever bought Sam Adams in a can, it has different textured cans. Jim Koch worked closely with the Ball Canning Company, and they designed a special can for Samuel Adams specifically. Second thing you'll notice is light pollution will skunk up a beer. For lack of better terms, it'll make it gross. Sam Adams also has higher colanders on their beer glasses to protect more of the beer, to keep the sun and all the light off of it. And of course, darker beer bottles tend to keep out light as well. And it's not anything new that Sam Adams has been doing. As you can see here, this is an older, at least 10 years old, 12 years old, cherry wheat container that I still have. About 5 years ago, this was their label here. Still nice and tall. Not only cherry wheat they do it on, it's on all their beers. So just kind of food for thought when you're purchasing a beer and a quality of beer. Yes, you do pay a little bit more for it, but the price of the craft beer goes a long way and speaks volumes when you're actually drinking it and enjoying it, instead of just pounding down the big beer companies' beers to drink them. Okay, enough jabber-jawing about beers and technology and in the books. Let's get to the beer itself here. So, as I mentioned with the glasses, you always want your glass nice and warm. Don't put it in the freezer, don't put it in the refrigerator, room temperature. Your beer, you always want to have it at least 38 degrees or warmer, depending on the kind of beer it is, but typically a good ballpark average is 38 degrees to 42 degrees for coolness. Don't put it any cooler, don't put it any warmer, unless of course you get some stouts and some other stuff that just needs warmer temp, you know, whatever. Normal, everyday, 98% of your beer you're going to drink, it's going to be between 38 and 42 degrees. This one, right out of the fridge, perfect temperature. So the first thing you want to do, of course, you got to open it, right? So let's see here. Got a nice crisp sound, CO2 escaping, and no overflow. That's good, because you don't ever want overflow, because that's good. Cheers. First glance out of it, not a lot of foamage coming out of here, so we're good there. So let's get into the pour. When I pour a beer, no matter if I'm at home, whether I'm at work, well, when I was bartending, you always put the glass on a 45-degree angle. Tip it in here, just slowly pour it in there. Just slowly. There's no rush, there's no race, because perfection can't be rushed. So get a nice pour. You want just a little bit of head going on there, and at the end you speed it up a little bit and you straighten it up. And right there, you'll get a nice half-inch head of beer. It does depend on if it comes out of a bottle, can, or if it's coming out of a tap, how much head you will get. Also will depend on if it's on CO2 or nitro, but that was pretty good for what I like to see out of a bottle. First glance, Sam Adams Cherry Wheat, look at that, beautiful golden. You got the CO2 is just coming up, constantly stirring it up. I can already smell the cherries coming out of this. But we got a beautiful golden color coming out of it. Got a reddish tint to it. You can see through it. There's not any abnormalities to it. Definitely awesome. So as you move on from the color, the next thing you want to do is when you're looking at a beer, visually is first. Second thing is going to be smell. So go ahead and get a good whiff of it. Oh my gosh. I smell the cherries, the wheat. It's coming out right to the top. Sam Adams Cherry Wheat is brewed with Michigan cherries. They do come out of, I believe, the Traverse City area. It does say Great Lakes area, but Traverse City is the cherry capital of the world, and I believe the cherries do come from there. Something that I have had and I do enjoy is some places will have Sam Adams Cherry Wheat on draft, and when they do have it on draft, they will put the maraschino cherries in the bottom of it. Of course, the cherry wheat isn't brewed with the maraschino cherries, but they are a sweeter cherry, and they do give the beer a nice, subtle, more sweetness when you're drinking it. And of course, you get your cherry at the end that you can eat as you please, but definitely has the aromas of cherry and summertime and just 4th of July, you know, it's amazing. Okay, so what's beer without a taste? We got the visual, we got smell of it. Let's taste it. Let's see what it tastes like. Cheers. Wow. First taste on the front of the tongue. Get a little bit of a tart cherry taste to it. Really smooth, not bitter. There's no hop aroma whatsoever coming out of it. Definitely tart cherry. Mid-tongue kind of sweetens up. You get a lot more of the carbonation, a lot more chewiness per se. Definitely just full body. The wheat kind of hits you towards the mid back of the tongue. And as it finishes, there's no alcohol burn, just sweet cherry coming down the back of your throat. Carbonation isn't overpowering. It's not too tart. Sweetness is there through the whole thing. And I'm still getting very, very, very sweet aftertaste. So beautiful, smooth drinking beer. It definitely has some honey to it. I believe they use the noble hop when they are brewing it. Can't even taste it, but the certain alpha acidities that are in there you can somewhat faintly pick out, but definitely has a lot of the Michigan cherries and honey in the beer. So as the beer has a couple sips in it, you can definitely see still have plenty of carbonation in it. That golden color is still hanging on. It's not faded out. It's definitely still there. It's just a great overall beer. We'll go into a little bit of the IBU and the alcohol content that we have in Sam Adams. They are a 5.3% alcohol by volume, and it's 23 on the International Bitter Unit scale for bitterness. It's pretty low, which means you're not going to taste any real hoppy flavors out of the beer. You're not going to taste a whole lot of the bitterness. You're going to get a smooth, sweet, just great overall beer. So if you're not into like hoppier beers, any of the IPAs, anything that has, any kind of hop to it, this one's definitely a good choice to pick up. As for the 5.3% alcohol by volume, typically an average beer is about 5% alcohol by volume. You get in some of your higher class, bigger beer companies. I don't really want to name names because I don't really care to sponsor them. However, they are a little bit lower. They're maybe 4.3 to 4.8. Just depends on your favorite kind of brand that you prefer other than craft. So for a craft beer, 5.3, that's really good. So Sam Adams on a scale of 1 to 10 for a beer. I'm biased. I'm going to give it flat out right here. I'm going to tell you a 10, and it's highly recommended in my book. The fullness is there from a beer that you want to have a beer. It's enjoyable, it's drinkable, it's sweet, it's not too bitter. You can enjoy it all year round, and that's the beauty of the beer. It is available all year round. If you guys are having any trouble trying to locate Sam Adams Cherry Wheat, I highly recommend downloading the Untapped app, and you can search breweries, you can search certain beers and try to find it within a certain radius of your location. You might not be able to find it, but Sam Adams Cherry Wheat is one of those seasonal beers that is around all year round, and it's drinkable any time of the year. You can have it with any meal. It's great with pizza, burgers, turkey, chicken, anything you can think of. It goes very well. Good juicy steak. So I think that's going to do it. That's my review on Sam Adams Cherry Wheat. Go out and pick yourself up some. Until next time, cheers.